It's your wedding, your guests are seated, and they are ready for the grand introduction. I want this moment to be amazing for you, which is why I put together today's video covering a few tips for success for an awesome wedding party introduction. Hey friends, it's Franco with Show Me Sound back again with another video packed full of wedding related content to help you plan your big day. Today we are covering some of the important things that you need to keep in mind to make the most out of your wedding party introduction. We're going to kick it off with one of the most important things right at the jump, and that is name pronunciation. The very last thing that you want to do is hand your DJ or MC a list of names and hope they know how to correctly pronounce everyone that they're introducing. Make sure that you spend a few minutes on a phone call or a Zoom call or whatever with your DJ or MC in advance to make sure that not only are you relaying how you would like these names introduced over the microphone, but also hearing it back from them. You want them to read this list back to you so you can make any adjustments before they do it in front of all of your family and friends. Personally, when I am covering all of the names that I'll be responsible for introducing over the microphone, I make sure that I write down the names myself because I'm going to write them down in my notes how I'm going to be pronouncing those names. So if any one of the wedding party members are looking over my shoulder while we're reviewing the names before I introduce them into the room, they will probably see some misspellings because to me, I don't care about the spelling. What I care about most in that moment is that when I read my notes, I am pronouncing the names that I'm responsible for correctly. As an addition, I know this isn't directly related to pronunciation of names, but if you have a best man or multiple best men or a maid of honor, matron of honor, etc., you want to make sure that you also clarify which person that is in your wedding party if you want them introduced that way when they're brought into the room. It is also important to consider how you would like to be introduced into the room. For example, it could be Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It could be Mr. and Mrs. John Smith. It could be Mr. and Mrs. John and Jane Smith. There's a multitude of different ways you can be introduced into the room. At that moment, it's purely based on preference, but this is something that you'll want to discuss ahead of time with your DJ before that moment comes up. Another super important consideration to make the most out of your wedding party introduction is, of course, the music. There are a ton of different ways you can go with the music selection for this moment. I know that most of the time it is one all-encompassing song to bring everyone into the room. But for example, if you and your husband or wife would like to walk into a separate song from the rest of your wedding party, your DJ can accommodate that as well. The important thing to keep in mind about this moment is that it is a celebratory occasion. You're all coming into the room. Everyone will be applauding. So it is important to think of a song that raises the energy, something upbeat or energetic to get everyone into the actual thing that's happening in front of them. You can absolutely count on guests in attendance to be applauding and cheering during this moment. So it is important to find a song that matches that kind of energy. Finally, before the introductions even start, make sure you have a game plan of where everyone is supposed to go. I always recommend that you check with your photographer or videographer to see where they recommend everyone to be, since they will be the ones that are framing the shot of the moment that everyone enters into the room. And of course, once you have decided on where everyone is set to go when they are brought into the room, make sure that that is communicated with everyone in your wedding party as well, so they know what the plan is. Sometimes the wedding party will break off and go to different places. For example, if there's a sweetheart table, they may have their own assigned seating that they need to go to. Sometimes they'll just go ahead and stand in front of the head table as bride and groom enters the room. In other instances, there might be some other thing happening, such as them standing and making kind of a tunnel path for bride and groom to walk through. All of this, of course, is customizable based on whatever your preference is. The point here is just make sure it's communicated ahead of time so everyone knows where they're headed. And of course, aside from where everyone is headed, how they enter the room is also something that should be discussed. I've seen a ton of introductions that are hilarious. If it is going to be a situation where a pair comes into the room and they do something funny in front of all of your guests, that might be a case for allowing a little bit more time in between each couple entering and walking into the room, Just make sure you have a game plan ahead of time so that time can be accounted for when you're picking your song and how quickly you want your MC or your DJ to be introducing names into the room. The biggest recurring theme across all of these tips, of course, is good communication. You want to make sure that not only is everything communicated across the board with your wedding party for the introduction, but also the person responsible for bringing them into the room, as well as your photographer and videographer. Solid communication is definitely going to create the opportunity for an amazing wedding party introduction and should not be overlooked. With these tips, good communication, you will be set up for success. Do you have any wedding related questions that you would like answered in a future video? If so, go ahead and drop them down in the comments below. And if you know someone who might find these tips valuable, please feel free to share this video with them. Again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Peace.